They mocked Earth's Marines until they found her name on the kill list. Then they begged for peace. They mocked Earth's Marines like it was tradition. In every war council, every elite training academy across the galaxy, humans were the punchline. Too soft, too emotional, too reliant on instinct over analytics. The younger alien officers parroted it like gospel. They hadn't fought a Terran, not really, and certainly not one of those Terrans. Virelin Prime's war briefing room echoed with laughter as the high commanders read the list of incoming forces for the coalitions. Next cleanup mission. 10,000 soldiers from 7 worlds, precision elites from the Varn, heavy shock troopers from the Creel, tactical swarm units from the Threx Dominion, and then, tucked at the bottom of the manifest like a typo, Earth Marines, 8 units. 8? General Kivrak sputtered, his mandibles flaring. Surely they meant 80. No, hissed the Zarn tactician beside him, long fingers scrolling through the datapad again. 8. Total. Another burst of laughter shook the table. The idea was ridiculous. Earth was a backwater world granted token membership into the Coalition only after proving itself marginally useful during a border dispute decades ago. Their culture was erratic, their weapons outdated, their physiology unimpressive, and now this? Sending 8 humans into a war zone that required a full siege force? They'll be useful for cleanup, someone snickered. But then the tone changed. High Marshal Trevik, the oldest present, wasn't laughing, wasn't. He tapped the table twice, and the holographic projector blinked to life, cycling through intelligence data. A new file appeared, locked and double encrypted. Only Coalition High Command had access. This is unrelated to the Virayon operation, he said almost quietly, but it came through priority channels. The file opened. A list scrolled upward, compiled from centuries of military encounters and Black Ops intelligence. It was the classified kill list, a ranking of the most dangerous known combatants and units in the galaxy across all species. Most of the names were familiar. Pirate lords, war criminals, apex bioengineered weapons gone rogue. Then a pause, a silence. One of the Varn commandants frowned. Why is there only one Terran entry? Trevik didn't respond. Instead, he zoomed in on the file. Name Sergeant Mira Rel Species, Human Affiliation Earth Marine Corps Threat Level, Red Engagement Protocol, Avoid Engagement, Do Not Pursue. Red? Someone whispered. For a human? The room shifted from amusement to disbelief, then suspicion. But the file's classifications were clear. Rel's designation outranked known planetary destroyers. The list only recommended 3 individuals galaxy-wide as red-level threats. 2 were presumed dead. The third was on her way to Virelin Prime. Trevik spoke again, slow and measured. She's been on the list for 14 years. Every attempt to locate or declassify her file has failed. Records are either wiped or sealed at the highest level of Terran clearance. But why? One of the generals asked. What has she done? No one could answer, but a few had heard things, whispers from the darker corners of the galaxy, strange reports from failed missions where all surveillance cut out, and every life form in a target radius was found dead, unmarked, as if fear itself had killed them. Pirate fleets gone silent after targeting a single drop pod. An entire insurgent base in the Hades Rift found abandoned, all 3,000 soldiers missing. No gunfire, no blood, just empty. Each time someone claimed the humans were involved. Each time the name was the same. Rel! But that's myth, the Zarn officer hissed, too quickly. Was it? There were no images of her, no confirmed sightings, no public records, just that name, and the same reaction from every intelligence agent who dared to read further. A sudden resignation or quiet retreat from service. The hologram flickered and zoomed into her file again. A single line sat at the bottom in stark red font, "Do not engage under any circumstances." The room, moments ago filled with arrogance and laughter, had fallen completely silent. Even the background hum of the control panels seemed subdued. Trevik ended the projection. I don't know why she's coming. I don't know what she is. But she's one of the 8 Earth Marines being deployed to Virelon. Make of that what you will. An uneasy shuffle passed through the room. Questions hung heavy in the air. Questions no one dared to ask aloud. Why would Earth send someone like her to a low-stakes planetary operation? What if she wasn't there to fight the enemy? What if she was there for them? Someone suggested requesting Earth withdraw her. Another warned against it. If she's on active deployment, he said, Earth must have sanctioned it. Interfering could be seen as an act of aggression, as if aggression mattered anymore. The idea that this woman, if she was even fully human anymore, was walking into a battlefield alongside their troops triggered something no one wanted to admit. Fear. Sergeant Mira Rell was no myth to Earth. They had put her on the list themselves, and sent her anyway. The name spread faster than orders could be issued. Within hours of the Virelon deployment manifest being leaked, every high command node across Coalition space had the same question on their screens. Why is Mira Rell active? The list wasn't supposed to be public. It was a dead-drop classification archive, something used only in the gravest situations to flag individuals or weapons systems that should never, under any condition, be engaged directly. Yet there it was, a single name, human, female, no known squad, no known superiors, no visual records, no known victories logged, only disappearances, dead ends, and redacted files. No one remembered approving her entry onto the kill list. That, in itself, was the first red flag. Her threat level wasn't numerical, it was color-coded, red. Only 3 others shared that classification, and none were considered active. One was a living black hole encased in armor. Another was a sentient AI war fleet trapped in a dying star system. The third had self-immolated after breaching psychic containment protocols. Rell was different. She wasn't contained. She wasn't retired. She was being deployed. Commanders tried to access more details, but her data string triggered cascade, wipes on every secure server. Analysts attempting to retrieve personnel files reported system corruption. When a Varn cryptographer tried decrypting one of the redacted records manually, his mind broke after reading less than 2 sentences. He died whispering her name. No biological trauma, just pure cognitive collapse. Military tribunals called emergency meetings. Some argued she was a myth, created to boost Terran morale. Others pointed to the growing list of unexplainable incidents where her presence was rumored. One such event had taken place 6 years prior on Veltraxis 9, a remote mining colony taken hostage by insurgents. No communication had been received for weeks. A coalition fleet was on its way when the signal returned suddenly, clear, calm, and brief. Situation resolved. That was it. Upon arrival, the entire mining colony was silent. No insurgents, no resistance. Just terrified survivors who wouldn't speak, not even under interrogation. They only said one thing. She came at night, and no one heard her leave. Another incident involved the annihilation of a pirate fleet attempting to raid a Terran convoy. Multiple ships, armed with EMP shields, phase cloaks, and plasma throwers, vanished after engaging a small transport vessel that was supposedly unmanned. Debris was never found. Radio logs recorded only one voice on the final transmission. "Yubo, were warned." Every inquiry led back to the same source, the Rell designation. By now, commanders who had once scoffed at Earth were reviewing their own defensive protocols. Officers began whispering behind closed doors. If this woman was real, and not just some intelligence fabrication, what was she? An experiment? A relic from a forgotten war? Or something worse? Some suggested reaching out to Earth directly. They were met with silence. The Terran Defense Network didn't deny her existence. They didn't acknowledge it either. They simply responded with an automated diplomatic message. Deployment status is not subject to external review. A curious decision for a species mocked for being too open, too honest, too eager to prove themselves. One officer tried speaking with a human diplomat during a neutral summit. The moment Rel's name was mentioned, the diplomat's smile vanished. He leaned forward and said quietly, "If she's on the list, there's a reason. And if she's active, it means the reason is already walking toward you." No further clarification was given. As the Virelon operation approached, fear began to take root not in the lower ranks, but in the minds of the admirals and generals who understood what red-level threats meant. Alien PSYOPs divisions tried to dig into Earth's command culture, but even Terran dissidents wouldn't speak about her. In black markets and intelligence brokering rings, her name started to replace the usual warlords on bounty kill lists. Not as a target, but as the one name no one wanted to see. Soon, rumors warped into legends. It was said she never raised her voice, never fired twice, that she moved through combat zones like a ghost, that bullets changed direction mid-air to avoid her, that she once convinced an enemy to kill himself just by looking at him, that she didn't sleep, that she couldn't be scanned or tracked, that she had no heat signature, no neural pattern, no psychic presence, that she wasn't even alive anymore, and yet there was no confirmation of any of it. Just after effects, dead systems, silent ships, empty armor, always neat, always fast, always untraceable. Coalition psychology teams began filing internal requests to address rising anxiety levels in elite squads scheduled to operate near human units. This was unprecedented. Alien troopers, bred for emotionless execution, now flinched when they saw a human-shaped shadow. War games were delayed due to sudden morale inconsistencies. Commanders rechecked their deployment maps. Some tried reassigning squads away from Mira Rel's unit. Earth refused. She was non-negotiable. Worse, Earth offered no command link. She operated under independent jurisdiction. No one would speak on her behalf. No one could order her to stand down. This wasn't normal military protocol. This was something else. Something older. Something buried. In the dead corners of Coalition Black Archives, a phrase kept appearing in declassified scraps of Terran war documentation. She exists only when needed. The implication was horrifying. She wasn't part of a program. She was the contingency for programs. She was called when every other option had failed, when diplomacy was over, when warnings were ignored, when someone needed to vanish without a trace. And now she was on their side. Or at least, that's what they hoped. Some wondered if Earth had sent her not as an ally, but as a warning, a reminder. Humanity had endured countless mockeries from its galactic neighbors. This might be their response, not with words, but with presence. One presence, one name. Enough to break fleets before battle began. All anyone knew for sure was that the classified list didn't lie. Mira Rel was real. She had a kill rating that made entire species look like collateral, and she was walking onto a battlefield shared. With the best soldiers in the galaxy, no one laughed anymore. The atmosphere aboard the Coalition transport was tense. 10,000 troops prepared for deployment on Virelon Prime. The mission was straightforward: reclaim a planet overrun by pirates using jamming tech. Coalition intelligence believed it was a minor operation, perfect for showcasing interspecies cooperation. The command structure was layered, each species given control over their specialized branches. Efficiency and unity were the goals, at least on paper. When the Earth Marines arrived, no one applauded. 8 humans, no advanced exosuits, no flashy weapons, no support drones. They wore matte black combat fatigues with no insignia except a single Terran sigil pressed over the heart. Other species measured force in legions. Earth sent fewer people than most planets sent for recon. Coalition officers exchanged glances. There was confusion, some derision. One of the Varn tacticians quietly asked whether the rest of the humans had been delayed. They hadn't. That was the full team. 8. No replacements. No auxiliaries. No visible emotion. The lead alien coordinator, trying to maintain protocol, asked for unit designations. Each human answered with short military identifications. All. Standard, except the last. Mira Rel, the woman said flatly. Silence followed. The name had been whispered over the last 2 cycles. Most of the soldiers didn't believe she existed. Others hoped she didn't. Now she stood in front of them. No armor enhancements, no obvious weapons. Just a calm, steady posture and eyes that didn't blink when stared at. Her presence fractured the command unity. Several officers subtly shifted protocols, placing her name far from the chain of command. No one wanted operational responsibility over her. She received no direct orders. She asked for none. She said nothing after initial identification. She simply stood among the others and waited. To avoid friction, the coalition commander assigned the Earth Marines to rear support, quiet positions, non-critical. No one protested. The humans responded with a simple acknowledgement and returned to prepping their gear. The aliens interpreted this as submission. They took it as evidence of the humans' lack of seriousness. Coalition war doctrine favored structured aggression, shock power, targeted surges, heavy aerial coverage. The Terrans brought none of it. Just 8 operatives. And her. As briefing cycles passed, murmurs spread through the troop decks. Soldiers whispered of the kill list. Some claimed it had been faked. Others said she had been retired and this was a coincidence. A few believed Earth had sent her on purpose, and that every breath she took was a test. A week before deployment, something shifted. A Threx scout vessel was destroyed during pre-insertion scans. No distress beacon, no combat log. Just a silent rupture. Coalition security scrambled, but found no trace of enemy movement. The pirates, somehow, had preemptive strike capacity. An emergency re-strategy meeting was called. During the council, someone asked whether the humans had combat predictions or tactical recommendations. Earth had remained quiet during all previous meetings. But this time, one of the human operatives passed a data chip to the lead Varn commander. It contained a full breakdown of pirate tactics, supply lines, communication towers, and fallback routes. Precise, accurate, predictive down to exact meter placements. Far more detailed than anything Coalition intelligence had managed. When asked how they had acquired this data, the human simply said, "Rel mapped it." Rel didn't speak. A Creel captain muttered something about lucky guesses and dismissed the file as a bluff. He ordered his men to stick with the original plan: high-orbit artillery, frontal push, full ground sweep. Traditional, costly, reliable. Earth's Marines didn't push back. They nodded, acknowledged, returned to prep. On the day before deployment, a private scan team tried to locate Rel during routine biosign checks. Her suit wasn't broadcasting any recognizable signal. Thermal scans picked up nothing. Neural trackers couldn't tag her. She was physically present, but not digitally. Her squad mates confirmed she was still with them, but when asked about her background, every Marine gave the same answer. Not relevant to mission parameters, with no open conflict yet underway, and Coalition doctrine forbidding internal profiling during joint missions, there was nothing to act on. Still, several units quietly changed their drop zones to be away from Earth's position. No one officially admitted it, but no one wanted to land near her. The mission countdown continued. Final pre-launch protocols were issued. Commanders repeated. Briefings. Assignments were distributed. The Earth Marines remained unbothered, reviewing their own separate combat code. When one Threx engineer asked them what weapons they would be using, the answer came back: whatever's necessary. The eye, last visual of the Earth team before drop insertion, was cold and silent. 8 humans. One name that no one wanted to say out loud. Rel stood at the edge of the launch corridor, arms behind her back, watching the vacuum of space as if expecting it to blink first. No prayers were spoken, no final words shared. Just the quiet awareness that something more than soldiers had been dropped into the coming war zone. It was no longer about the pirates. It was about surviving long enough to see whether the stories were true, whether she was myth or warning, whether the kill list was prophecy or understatement. The battlefield was waiting, so was she. The landing began with confidence. Coalition forces executed standard procedure, multi-vector drops, rapid deployment grids, and regional lockdowns. Virelin Prime's terrain was rugged, dotted with abandoned outposts and comm-jamming towers, scattered across mountains and canyons. Coalition intelligence claimed the pirates were organized but fractured, running scavenger-level tech with no orbital defenses. The operation was expected to be over within 72 hours. That assumption collapsed in less than 3. From the first landing wave, things went wrong. Initial comms were clear, but within minutes of contact, all coalition frequencies went dark. Jamming tech was stronger than expected, far stronger. Visual feeds glitched, GPS relays failed, squad tracking vanished, fire teams became isolated, orders couldn't be relayed. Confusion spread. The pirates didn't attack immediately. They let the silence grow, then came the ambushes. Perfectly timed, precisely coordinated. The enemy wasn't fractured, it was unified. Coalition troops found themselves flanked, encircled, overwhelmed. Threx swarm units were routed. Creel heavy infantry encountered anti-armor mines that anticipated their step patterns. Entire squads disappeared. No distress signals, no combat logs. Just static. By hour 5, command integrity broke. A high-priority signal cut through the jamming. It was a distress ping, compressed into a single data packet. The flagship tried to trace the signal's origin, but failed. It had no known encryption protocol. Coalition Command began pulling forces back to regroup, but only 20% of deployed troops responded. No one knew how many were dead. No one could confirm who was still fighting. Coalition Command began preparing fallback options. This wasn't a cleanup anymore. It was a trap. Then came the second signal, not from the pirates, from Earth. 4 words. Permission to engage, Rel. No call sign, no encryption, just text. The moment it hit the relay, Command paused. No, confirmation was sent. Earth didn't wait. A few minutes later, all jamming across the eastern region of Virelin dropped. Coalition units operating near Sector E7 suddenly found their systems online. HUDs returned. Comms reconnected. Drones rebooted. A scout squad's helmet camera came back online mid-broadcast. What they captured wasn't a battle. It was aftermath. Pirates, dozens, dead in defensive positions. No signs of struggle, no external wounds, no alarms triggered. They looked like they had simply collapsed where they stood, weapons still slung, eyes wide open. One had a knife in hand, unthrown, unused. An alien medic examining the footage couldn't identify the cause. No toxins, no trauma, just frozen terror. A single word was scribbled in blood across one bunker wall. Rel. The footage wasn't broadcast officially, but it spread fast through back channels. Morale across coalition squads destabilized further, not from fear of pirates, but from realization. The enemy wasn't the threat anymore. Coalition officers tried to regain control. Orders were issued to re-establish communication lines and push forward. But the soldiers hesitated. Some refused to enter sectors where Rel's team had moved. Others claimed to hear whispers in their earpieces when scanning those zones, coded pulses that didn't belong to any known language. The pirates began to break. Intercepted enemy chatter revealed panic. Commanders on their side were issuing Emergency evacuations from key strongholds. Reinforcements refused to land. Something was dismantling their defensive layers from within, but no one had seen what or how. Survivors reported losing full platoons after hearing a single footstep. No gunfire, no movement, just a presence, and then silence. One pirate, picked up by a fleeing recon drone, was found crawling through the mud with his face torn by his own claws. Coalition forces managed to stabilize him. When interrogated, he said only this: "She looked at me." His pulse stopped before medics could reach him. Brain scans showed no signs of neural overload, no drug interference. Just a clean shutdown, as if something inside had switched off. More regions went dark. Coalition Command tried to locate Rel's squad but failed. Every time Earth Marines were seen on a feed, they weren't there minutes later. Their identifiers stopped broadcasting. Their weapons were no longer standard issue. One recording showed a human walking alone into a pirate defense tunnel. Moments later, the feed went white. Not black, not offline. White. That footage was deleted minutes after retrieval by an unknown override key. Coalition servers logged the deletion but couldn't trace its source. Earth gave no explanation. Back at orbit, the commanding generals met again. One suggestion was raised: to recall Rel, to issue a termination code or at least request her extraction, but no one knew how. Earth had not provided a link, no command line, no kill switch. Mira Rel was not part of their hierarchy. She had no rank on Coalition records. She didn't appear on manifest after insertion. She wasn't registered as alive or dead. She simply was. Troops began moving differently, not by order but by instinct. When advancing, they avoided areas already touched by her squad. When retreating, they fell back to sectors where her presence hadn't been reported. Some began marking their maps not by enemy threat levels, but by signs of her path. Alien commanders started issuing deployment codes that excluded any joint operation with human units. Officially, the reason was tactical discrepancy. Unofficially, it was fear. Coalition intelligence updated her profile again. No longer labeled as potential threat. Now marked operational unknown. No longer requested for observation. Now flagged for avoidance. The data was broadcast across secure internal networks. An internal memo followed shortly after. Brief, untraceable, sent from a non-existent relay station. She's not here for the pirates. She's here to remind you. No signature, no confirmation. The mission continued, but the war had already changed. The moment Mira Rel moved without permission was the moment every alien officer realized something Earth had never said aloud. She didn't follow orders. She was the order. By the 7th hour of the operation, the pirates weren't fighting anymore. They were fleeing. Coalition troops found enemy outposts abandoned mid-routine, food left half-eaten, weapons still charged, defense turrets powered down with full ammo. No signs of struggle, no external breaches. Just the unmistakable stamp of panic-driven retreat, the kind that didn't come from superior firepower but from something deeper, something primal. Recovery teams sent into one of the larger strongholds recorded anomalies. Walls torn inward with no signs of explosion. Pressure seals melted from the inside. Security logs erased, except one corrupted clip showing a motionless silhouette for 2 frames, then static. Engineers couldn't identify the cause. Psych officers didn't try. What made it worse was that her squad wasn't with her. Mira Rel had separated without notice or comm signal. Coalition forces monitoring heat maps found paths cleared in advance of her arrival, paths not marked on any known terrain charts. Some moved through sheer rock, as if the landscape itself parted before she stepped. An alien recon team attempted to tail her trail covertly. They disappeared. Days later, their equipment was found in a perfect circle, untouched by weather, laid out with deliberate precision. Each helmet facing the center. Not one body. Back on the command carrier, requests were made to Earth to intervene. No response. Coalition security officers tried seizing one of the Earth Marines for questioning. The attempt lasted 12 seconds. All of them were incapacitated without a single shot fired. No fatal injuries, no retaliation, just a clear message. Interfere, and you will be removed. The incident wasn't logged officially. Coalition leadership agreed, silently, that further action would only escalate something they didn't understand. One general quietly authorized withdrawal of all personnel from sectors flagged by Earth as under observation. No reason was provided. No protest was filed. By hour 12, pirate command structures were in collapse. Internal chatter revealed panic, not over the coalition assault, but over a rumor spreading within their ranks. A name, a myth. They didn't call her Rel, they called her the Silence. Reports said she didn't speak, didn't shoot, didn't run. She simply moved, and when she passed, systems shut down, lights failed, people forgot how to breathe. And if she looked at you, truly looked, you stopped being part of the world. Coalition forces started encountering empty ships drifting through the sky lanes above Virelion. Pirate vessels, engines intact, weapons systems active, crews gone. No escape pods launched. No evidence of boarding. Just silence. One cruiser was found circling the planet in perfect orbit, crewless, with all systems looping one message. We shouldn't have come. Technicians attempted to scrub and reboot the message, but it was hard-coded into the mainframe. Every time it was deleted, it returned, always in the same voice, always in the same tone, hers. One communications officer dared to intercept Earth's encrypted field net, hoping to catch some glimpse of what the humans were planning. He accessed one segment of a closed frequency just for a second. What he heard was a rhythmic pulse like a heartbeat, but not biological. Then a phrase repeated 3 times. Observe, adapt, end. Afterward, the officer retired from service. Medically sound, mentally clear. Refused to speak another word. When asked why, he wrote a note instead. She's not human. She's what humans become when they stop explaining themselves. Coalition advisors tried briefing civilian oversight committees but couldn't get clearance. Earth had filed a blackout clause prior to the deployment. No Terran operations could be reviewed by external agencies until full mission debrief. That debrief was never scheduled. The clause was never rejected. Some speculated Rel's deployment was never about the pirates. That Earth used this conflict to send a reminder to the galaxy. Not a threat. A demonstration. Not to prove superiority, but to correct a mistake. The mistake was underestimating humanity. Again, there was no mass slaughter, no orbital bombardment, no overkill, just precise disruption, surgical removals, strategic silence. Every pirate base wasn't destroyed. It was unraveled, left hollow, not ruined, but unclaimed. Coalition sociologists began drafting reports with phrases like tactical, mythogenesis, and subconscious deterrence programming. They tried explaining the unexplainable through language, models, theories, but none of it changed the facts. Wherever Rel walked, enemy presence ceased. Wherever she was seen, resistance folded. The pirates had firepower. They had numbers. But they had never prepared to face fear itself. A final stronghold held the last of the pirate command. Coalition prepared for full assault. Earth Marines said nothing. The attack plan was underway when the feed from the stronghold went black. Then, without signal, the feed came back. One camera, alone, broadcasting a hallway. Empty. Still. In the center, one weapon rested on the floor, untouched. Every pirate gone. No breach, no trace. Only one thing remained. A symbol etched into the wall behind the weapon. A handprint pressed, deep into solid alloy. Human-sized. Burned in. That footage was archived under triple encryption. The report filed simply read, "Resolved before arrival." From orbit, one final scan tracked a lone human signature moving west, away from the battlefront. No signal, no comm. Just a pulse that faded beyond sensor range within seconds. No pursuit was authorized, and no one ever asked Earth what she was doing there. When the drop pods hit Virellum Prime, the Coalition forces began their assault exactly as planned. High-altitude bombardment softened suspected pirate strongholds. Airships roared overhead. Alien infantry poured into breach zones with precision. The landscape, once lush and green, transformed into scorched soil and broken ruins. Resistance was heavier than expected. The pirates weren't just scavengers. They had discipline, fortifications, real-time countermeasures. Someone had trained them, and it wasn't local. In the first 72 hours, Coalition casualties exceeded projections by 37%. Threx formations were ambushed in blind terrain. Creel artillery units were neutralized within minutes of deployment. Entire Varn recon squads vanished without a trace. And still, Command kept pushing forward, convinced that force saturation would overwhelm the enemy. Earth's Marines did not engage. They stayed on the fringe of operations outside of command zones, moving without broadcasts or coordination. No one assigned them targets. No one tracked their progress. At first, this irritated the Joint Command. Then it worried them, because wherever those 8 humans went, silence followed. Communication towers stopped transmitting. Pirate camps went dark. Surveillance drones sent to monitor them either lost signal or returned blank data. And still, no combat logs, no confirmed visuals, just vanishing heat signatures and brief anomalies in gravity readings. The turning point came on the 5th day. Coalition Command had located what they believed to be the pirate central fortress, a massive underground complex shielded by deflector arrays. All attempts to breach had failed. Mines covered every approach. Energy fields melted drone circuits before contact. Conventional siege protocol would take weeks, if not months. As Command debated escalation, a single encrypted packet hit the command uplink. Origin unknown. Contents: a 12-second audio burst. No metadata, no identifier. The sound was raw and unfiltered. It wasn't a distress call or command alert. It was the echo of boots, 8 sets, walking across metal. No voices, no shots, just that slow, steady rhythm. Then silence. 3 minutes later, the fortress shields dropped. Not destroyed, not sabotaged, disabled cleanly. Doors unsealed themselves one by one, exposing corridors filled with collapsed structures, empty rooms, weapons left unfired. No signs of combat, no bodies, just absence. The Coalition expected an ambush. They sent in 3 Creel squads to sweep the outer levels. What they found was impossible. Pirate Command had been neutralized, every leader terminated with surgical precision. Their databanks scrubbed, their AI nodes reset, power cells untouched. No destruction, only quiet erasure. In the main control chamber, etched into the floor, with a plasma blade, was a phrase written in Earth Standard. "We asked you not to look for her." The reaction from Coalition High Command was instant. Emergency encryption protocols, tactical review teams, strategic lockdowns. They tried to regain control of the operation, but morale was collapsing. Troops started whispering the name again: Rel, the ghost, the warning. Even officers began altering patrol paths to avoid her projected zones. Command finally ordered contact. They sent a secure message requesting Earth's team report status. The reply came exactly 34 seconds later. Mission ongoing, interference. Unadvised. No rank, no signature, no coordinates. From that moment forward, Earth's Marines were no longer seen. But their effects were. One by one, pirate territories fell. Not with explosions, with vanishing signals, silent airfields, empty bases. Coalition scouts entering zones would find entire encampments deserted, food still warm, comms active, but no personnel. Entire regions were cleared without a single known engagement. The psychological effect spread faster than the strategic one. Pirates began abandoning positions, transmitting final messages full of confusion and fear. Some believed they were hunted by shadows. Others claimed they saw a human female walking through solid walls. None survived long enough to verify. The pirates tried to regroup in one last fortress, buried inside the polar mountain range, beneath layers of old mining shafts. It was supposed to be unreachable. They fortified it with anti-orbital guns, EMP shields, and cloaking grids. Command estimated a 2-month siege. It took one night. By sunrise, the entire structure had gone offline. Coalition Command sent a Varn drone swarm to investigate. The footage was reviewed by only 4 members of High Command. The drone reached the outer gates. They were open. The first few chambers were empty, lights flickering. Then the feed froze on a single image, a wall covered in pirate insignias. Every flag, every emblem burned into the metal. Above them, in blood-red chalk, was a list, just 10 names. 9 were crossed out. The 10th, Mirarel. That was the last image before the drone ceased transmission. Command issued a restricted directive. Do not engage, do not interfere, do not observe. By then, Earth's Marines had gone dark again. No signal, no sign, nothing but the results. Virelon Prime fell quiet. Pirate broadcasts stopped. Resistance evaporated. Coalition Command claimed victory in a brief public statement, attributing success to multi-species coordination and technological superiority. But the internal files told a different story. They knew it wasn't their war. It was a message, a display of restraint. Because Mirarel hadn't destroyed the pirates. She had dismantled them, removed their logistics, unraveled their cohesion, deleted their hierarchy. She didn't defeat an army. She nullified it. And then disappeared again, leaving only silence behind. The council convened an emergency session, but there was no longer unity in their purpose. Dozens of factions, once firm allies in their disdain for Earth, were now divided by fear, doubt, and betrayal. Each representative suspected the other of cutting secret deals with humanity. The illusion of coalition supremacy had crumbled, not through invasion or diplomacy, but because one human shattered the psychological foundation of their power. Mirarel had never asked for war. She had only acted decisively and without mercy, and now even her silence felt like an approaching storm. Across the galaxy, systems previously resistant to Terran influence began opening their borders to Earth's envoys. Governors and defense ministers who once boasted of Terran inferiority now pleaded for technology-sharing agreements, military partnerships, even protectorate status. What had started as myth became doctrine. Earth doesn't negotiate from weakness, because it no longer needs to negotiate at all. The galaxy had shifted, not with shock waves, but with whispers. The kind that ripple through command halls and war rooms, spreading faster than any declaration. The term human deterrent was coined quietly in think tanks and strategic intelligence units. It wasn't a reference to Earth's arsenal, it was a euphemism for Mira. Entire military doctrines were rewritten with her as the baseline threat. The coalition no longer prepared for war against Earth as a nation. They prepared for what would happen if she appeared. Commanders began refusing missions that might provoke Earth. Some planets enacted internal bans on broadcasting anti-Terran rhetoric, fearing that even a meme or slogan could trigger retribution. The death toll? Minimal. Her entire campaign, from first contact to now, had left fewer casualties than a single orbital bombardment. But what she destroyed was far more devastating than fleets or cities. She dismantled certainty, confidence, the collective assumption that humans were controllable, predictable, tame. And in its place, she left an unanswered question. What else have they hidden? Back on Earth, Mira did not return to applause. No medals, no ceremony. She walked through the old Marine barracks with the same boots she'd worn on her first day of training. Veterans nodded, recruits whispered, but no one dared stop her. Because by now, every human in uniform understood. She wasn't there to inspire them. She was there to remind them what being Terran meant. Humanity had never sought conquest. They had endured centuries of exploitation, manipulation, and exile from the galactic stage. And when they returned, they brought no demands. Just one message: never again. Mira Rel had become the embodiment of that principle. Not a weapon, not a savior, a line in the sand, permanent and immovable. The Coalition attempted one final measure: full declassification. They published the kill list. They revealed its origins, its intentions, its architects, hoping exposure would shift the blame, dilute the fear, create martyrs. It backfired instantly. Systems that had once trusted. The council erupted in protest. Riots broke out across 3 sectors. Military defections surged. Citizens turned against their leaders, demanding justice, reparations, and, in many cases, Terran assistance. Within weeks, the Coalition's central bureaucracy collapsed. Not from external pressure, but from internal guilt. It turned out the only thing more terrifying than Mira Rel's existence was the realization that they had created her. The kill list was no longer a secret. Now it was a monument, proof of arrogance and cruelty. And Earth, the once humbled outlier, became the arbiter of what came next. In place of the fallen bureaucracy, a new interstellar charter emerged. Drafted not by diplomats, but by survivors. It centered around a single principle. No species, no matter how powerful, had the right to preemptively define another's future. Earth was offered a permanent seat of leadership. They declined. They didn't need titles. Their influence was already absolute. Mira never spoke publicly again. Her name was etched into history, but not in gold or glory. It was engraved into doctrine, whispered in every war academy, studied by every admiral who understood the truth. The most dangerous enemy is the one who needs no army, no orders, and no vengeance. Just purpose. In the years that followed, statues were erected in her honor, not on Earth but on worlds that once plotted its erasure. Entire generations grew up learning not about Terran defeat, but about Terran resolve. Mira's story wasn't one of dominance, but of balance restored. Justice delivered without spectacle. A reckoning that reshaped the stars. But within the hidden chambers of Earth's deep black command, a secure terminal remained active. A redacted file glowed on an encrypted screen. The kill list, now sealed. Not forgotten, just incomplete. Because somewhere in the cold dark between systems, new names were always being written. Not for revenge, not for fear, but for the reminder that Earth remembers, and Earth never forgets. 3 years before Virelon Prime, deep in the outer sectors of unclaimed space, a Terran science vessel known only by its registry code, NTS-07, was reported missing. The vessel had no weapons, no defensive systems, and no military crew. Its manifest listed only civilian researchers and one unknown classified unit. It was investigating anomalies in neural signal behavior under zero-light conditions. The Coalition flagged the disappearance as irrelevant, another Terran overreach into dangerous zones. The ship was never recovered, but fragments were a rogue. Mining crews stumbled upon wreckage caught in the magnetic eddies of a dying neutron star. The debris was mostly unrecognizable: melted frames, compressed hull plating, blackened titanium with Earth markings. Among the fragments was a black storage pod sealed with triple encryption, displaying only one marking: Project Rel. The miners sold the pod to a private broker, who in turn attempted to sell it to the Zarn Intelligence Directorate. They never made it to the meeting. Their transport exploded in a gravity-neutral corridor, despite no energy signatures detected, no explosive residue, just absence. The coalition took notice, not of the incident, of the response. Earth launched no investigation. They didn't deny the project. They didn't claim the wreckage. They simply sent a notice to the Galactic Registry that all future claims to debris marked REL were prohibited under interstellar weapon containment law. The law was obscure, outdated, rarely enforced, but it was legally binding. That law was only used for objects classified as existential threat prototypes. This triggered a hidden inquiry, one Earth never knew about. Coalition intelligence activated Protocol Zeta, a forbidden path of interrogation meant to extract information from former allies. The target was a Terran cyberneticist who had retired quietly to a small orbital station near the Hadros expanse. He was one of the original minds behind the neurological military interface programs during Earth's assimilation into the Coalition system. The man did not resist arrest. He sat quietly, waiting. His first words to the interrogators were, "She's still alive then." They hadn't even mentioned a name. What followed was a 6-hour session, recorded and immediately sealed. Only fragments of the transcript were ever decrypted. According to the scientist, REL was never meant to be a person. She was the result of a failsafe, an emergency concept born out of Earth's realization that diplomacy would not protect them. They understood early that humans lacked the evolutionary advantages of other species. No built-in armor, no telepathy, no regenerative organs. They couldn't match alien fleets in size or weapons in scale. So Earth pivoted. They focused not on technology, but on the interface between brain and war. The REL initiative wasn't about building a better soldier. It was about creating a vector, a single human mind capable of syncing with battlefield environments on a subcognitive level, not augmented reflexes, not enhanced perception. Something else entirely, adaptive warfare logic, a mind so deeply fused with scenario analysis that it could rewrite combat in real time. Prediction elevated to inevitability. The problem was stability. All early candidates burned out. Neural systems collapsed under pressure. Emotional cores destabilized. The human brain, the scientists said, wasn't meant to hold that kind of awareness. Until Reliant, she wasn't selected because she was exceptional. She was selected because she didn't break. They built her in layers, not biologically, psychologically, stripped her of excess noise, removed traditional empathy feedback loops, left only the survival imperative, not just of herself, but of Earth. Her conditioning was clear. You are the final argument. She was deployed exactly 3 times before being recalled and sealed. Each deployment had no survivors on the enemy side. No damage to Terran assets, minimal evidence of intervention. After the 3rd mission, Earth buried the program. Not out of shame, but fear. She had become something they could no longer control. When asked why she was reactivated, the scientist only said, "You pushed Earth too far again. They don't broadcast warnings. They send one." The interrogators pushed for more, demanded full specs, control codes, neural anchors. But the man laughed. "There are no codes, no shutdown sequence. She's not a device. She's what remains when negotiation fails." The final entry in the report noted his body was later found inside his containment cell with no signs of trauma. No weapon, no breach. Only a faint imprint burned into the wall behind him, 5 fingers pressed in a perfect arc. The Coalition quietly terminated Protocol Zeta. From that point forward, all internal references to Mira Rel were moved to observation grade. Archives, forbidden from strategic review. No further inquiries were allowed. Any officer requesting access would receive an automated alert. Level 4 redaction. Threat engagement denied. Earth never mentioned the interrogation, never responded to the report, never acknowledged the dead scientist. They didn't need to the implication was enough. Rel wasn't their secret. She was their contingency. Everything made sense in hindsight. The jamming collapse, the pirate surrender without engagement, the silence that followed her movements. She wasn't operating under Earth's authority. She was Earth's presence incarnate. Not a warning, a resolution. The coalition finally understood the truth they had ignored for decades. Humanity wasn't broadcasting strength. They were storing it. Not in numbers, not in ships, in silence. And they had given it a name. Coalition analysts worked around the clock trying to piece together how 8 human operatives, under no formal command structure, could dismantle one of the most entrenched pirate syndicates in known space without so much as triggering satellite alerts. Intelligence reports turned up nothing useful. No heat trails, no power surges, no visual documentation. Every system that attempted to log Earth's marines either glitched, looped, or wiped itself clean. Some began to whisper that their very presence corrupted data, that the machines refused to record what they couldn't comprehend. But something far worse was brewing beneath the surface, an emotion rarely felt by the coalition's elite officers. Dread. The pirates weren't the only ones being neutralized. Warlords, arms dealers, data brokers, anyone who had ever done business with the Virellon network began to vanish, some in mid-transaction. Known affiliates who had never even set foot on Virellon Prime began going dark. In some cases, only a line of code was left behind. Hex strings that, when decoded, translated to a singular message, "She remembers." The effect spread far beyond military command. Civilian trade guilds started canceling operations in disputed sectors. Contractors fled outer territories en masse. Black market channels were flooded with requests for asylum from anyone who had once mocked or defied Earth's forces. These weren't pirates. These were people who had insulted Earth's honor in passing, people who'd laughed at Earth's small military footprint or rejected their diplomatic envoys. The pattern was clear to those paying attention. This wasn't just vengeance. It was audit. Someone, something, was keeping score. Within Earth's own circles, Mira Rel's name was never officially spoken. Her existence was denied in all formal records. But the veterans knew. Whispers passed among old squads, passed down through field reports never meant for archives. She had been real once, flesh and blood. A prodigy among soldiers, someone who broke limits, challenged command, bent the rules for results, and then she crossed the line. One mission too far, one kill too precise. The council had ordered her, name sealed, her record erased. But not because she'd failed, because she hadn't. They couldn't control her, couldn't predict her, so they buried her. But the humans who trained with her, they never forgot. No one knew how she came back. No one understood how she survived after vanishing from every database, after being declared KIA on a mission that had been sealed under threat of court-martial. But the assumption now wasn't that she survived. The assumption was that she chose to return. On her terms, at her time, with a purpose. Coalition efforts to monitor Earth's Marines became more desperate. They assigned shadow units to follow the team on minor assignments, hoping to catch patterns or weaknesses. Every one of those tail teams failed to report back. When the logs were retrieved from their black boxes, the recordings only contained a repeating tone, one that, when played at the right frequency, embedded a visual signal into the audio. A face, her face, eyes forward, staring through the camera, and beneath it, 3 words. You were warned. At this point, fear spread into the higher echelons. Coalition admirals began requesting reassignment from Earth-adjacent sectors. Internal security drafted an emergency directive. Any agent ordered to observe or interfere with Earth's Marines was granted full amnesty to refuse. Not because of ethics. Because no one wanted to be on the list. Some even began questioning the original order to exile her, quietly, in private conversations. Was she sent away because she was dangerous, or because Earth knew one day they'd need a myth to weaponize? Was Mira Rel the product of war, or the future of it? Meanwhile, Earth's silence was deafening. No statements, no claims, no attempts to explain or defend. The human delegation on the Coalition Council sat through every crisis briefing with folded arms and passive expressions. When asked for comment, they only offered one line: "Our Marine Division operates independently." Behind closed doors, however, certain species were beginning to understand. The humans had always played the long game. They didn't boast, they didn't posture, they prepared. They learned every system, every enemy, every weakness. And when the moment came, they didn't send an army. They sent a symbol. That was the brilliance. Mirarel wasn't about destruction. She was a message in motion, a living consequence, a legend designed not to win battles, but to prevent them. She made invasion unthinkable. She made resistance collapse under its own fear. Every fortress built against her crumbled without a fight, because no one wanted to be the next name added to her list. Across the galaxy, factions began to shift their positions. Neutral systems, once skeptical of Earth, started opening diplomatic ties. Pirate networks relocated deep into uncharted sectors, avoiding any route known to human patrols. Recruitment posters stopped mocking Terran soldiers. In some corners of space, children began drawing her face in the sand. Half in awe, half in fear, even non-human cultures once hostile to Terrans began issuing formal apologies for past actions. Not because they wanted peace, because they wanted distance. The strategic result was overwhelming. Earth's influence had grown without firing a shot publicly. Entire regions stabilized under the implication that Mirarel could be anywhere. Her presence rewrote the map. She had turned Earth's smallest unit into the most feared force in galactic history. The name Rel stopped being a warning. It became a doctrine. And the most terrifying part of all? She hadn't even made a statement. Yet, the Coalition thought they had faced fear before. They'd seen what orbital bombardments could do. They'd witnessed viral AI outbreaks on backwater moons and planet-scale extinction events triggered by black market terraforming gone wrong. But none of it compared to the silence surrounding Mirarel. She didn't raise cities or threaten civilizations. She simply existed, and that alone rewrote power structures. The Council tried to regain control by issuing an emergency mandate. A joint task force of elite operatives from multiple species would locate and neutralize her. Over a dozen veteran commanders, some with centuries of combat experience, were chosen. These were not diplomats or bureaucrats. They were killers, tacticians and masters of asymmetric warfare. Every species sent their best. Their orders were clear. Capture if possible, terminate if not. They vanished within 2 days. No distress calls, no tracker pings, no sensor logs. The only clue left behind was a fleet shuttle drifting in a neutral orbit, its engines offline, communications scrubbed, systems reset to factory state. There was no one aboard, except for a single word burned into the wall of the command cabin in flawless galactic standard: redacted. At first, some assumed it was a glitch, a malfunction, a trace of an old protocol. But the implications were clear to anyone who'd seen the classified kill list. That word wasn't accidental. It was a reminder. She knew about the list, and she knew who made it. Panic crept into the cracks of the Coalition's highest offices. Entire departments stopped functioning properly. Internal memos showed that hundreds of staff, especially those involved in Earth's military demotion decades ago, were resigning, citing personal relocation to lower-risk sectors. Private security firms began issuing protocols for Mira scenarios, with custom rates 3 times higher than planetary defense contracts. The Council, desperate for leverage, turned to Earth for help. They offered amnesty, diplomatic trade, routes, even technology exchanges in return for one simple gesture: control. They wanted Earth to recall its Marines, specifically Mira. Their request was met with a single, blunt transmission from Earth's ambassador to the Council. She doesn't answer to us. What followed next wasn't war. It was surrender by inertia. Sectors that had once been staging grounds for resistance now openly flew Earth's flag, not because they were conquered, but because they were protected. The humans hadn't demanded loyalty. They hadn't imposed sanctions. They hadn't even moved additional ships. The presence of Mira Rel, unconfirmed, unproven, was enough to realign entire regions. Commerce routes that had once been plagued by piracy became silent. Criminal cartels either disbanded or relocated to systems that had never once spoken ill of Earth. Even propaganda networks known for mocking Terran culture abruptly shifted tone. Instead of insults, they ran stories of human resilience, valor, and sacrifice. It was the first time in coalition history that cultural narratives changed not through coercion or conquest, but through fear of one person. And still, she hadn't made a public appearance. In the shadows, however, she remained active. Surgical strikes continued with terrifying precision. No bombings, no mass destruction, just calculated removal. One admiral who'd once joked about Earth's primitive tactics disappeared from his war barge mid-transit. His personal guards remained untouched, with no memory of what occurred. His chair was still warm. An interstellar arms dealer who once auctioned off stolen Terran tech vanished from her secure compound. Her security AI was found reprogrammed to play Terran lullabies on a loop. The footage was erased, no forced entry. No alarms. Each action followed a pattern. No collateral, no civilians, no trail. But the message was always clear. If your name was on the list, it was already too late. Behind closed doors, a new phrase emerged among military analysts. The REL Protocol. It wasn't an offensive doctrine. It was a survival guide. It outlined what to do when faced with signs of her presence. Evacuate. Do not engage. Do not investigate. Do not speak her name aloud. It wasn't officially acknowledged by the coalition, but field units knew better. They followed it religiously. Better to abandon a sector than risk her attention. Better to leave a base, a ship, even a planet, than end up as another unexplainable absence. Some tried to spin tales to undermine the fear that she was a myth, a psychological weapon engineered by Earth, a shared hallucination fed by misinformation. But too many disappeared. Too many systems shifted without explanation. Too many veterans whispered in tones usually reserved for gods and curses. On Earth, recruitment soared. Not because people wanted to be her, but because they wanted to serve, in the shadow of her legend. To learn from the culture that created her. Other species began sending applicants to Earth's marine academies. They weren't looking for status. They were looking for safety, for understanding, for belonging to something stronger than fear. Meanwhile, Earth remained quiet. No parades, no official declarations. The government neither confirmed nor denied her involvement in anything. They didn't need to. Her silence did more than 1,000 warships ever could. Then came the signal. Across 12 independent sectors, encrypted comms channels received the same message at the exact same time. A voice, human, female, calm. Phase 1 complete. No further context, no follow-up, just those 3 words. Every intelligence agency across the coalition scrambled to decipher what Phase 1 meant. Was it containment? Retribution? A prelude to war? The reality was worse. Because Mira Rel didn't act randomly. She didn't punish recklessly. Her actions had all followed a code, one built on unfinished business. The names on her list weren't chosen out of revenge. They were obligations. A ledger. She was erasing the sins written in silence when Earth was weak, and now, that part was done. Which meant what came next wasn't about retribution. It was about what Earth would build on the ashes.